understanding that if people know you as somebody who can't resolve conflict, they never will want a deep relationship with you, because they'll know that eventually they're going to have some kind of conflict and it can't.
That's
so
a really
all
good
your
point,
relationships have to stay surface level, because as you get closer to someone, we're all broken people. We all, need healing, and we need to work through our stuff. We're all on different journeys. And so eventually you get close to somebody, you're going to have some kind of conflict with them. And if people know that you can't handle conflict well, they'll just keep you at arm's length so that you can't ever get in a situation that's real enough to have conflict. And so remembering it's okay to have conflict. You and I can have a conflict, whether it's a disagreement or just something I said that hurt you or vice versa. It's okay for us to have conflict as long as we are willing to be humble, are willing to ask and give forgiveness, are committed to listening to understand and not to argue. Welcome back to the Journey Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler.
I'm Dillon.
Today we're talking about conflict resolution.
Your life, your journey starts now.
No Abigail, but she'll be back soon. Dillon, you and I were just talking before we started about a conflict you had in your life recently. Just give us a little bit of the background of what was taking place in that, particularly social media conflict, which I find interesting because it seems like everywhere you look on social media, there's conflict. So what was your big one that happened recently?
It's very easy, I think, to get into a social media conflict because people just...
Oh, yeah. I could fight with 10 strangers right now just by taking out my phone, I'm sure.
I think it's because there's little like social consequences that occur when we do it, because we can sit perfectly safely, most likely on our toilet. Yeah. And
Dillon fights people on Instagram or on Facebook from the toilet.
You can sit there in a safe room and you can say whatever you want to say. True. And whether or not it's hurtful or not, you can say whatever you want to say. True. And a lot of times I think people get away with saying hurtful things that they wouldn't say to somebody's face because they don't have to deal with the repercussions of somebody coming at them. Right.
So what happened to you? I mean, it was pretty big. I mean, multiple people involved. So to me, that's big. But
yeah, it blew way out of proportion from what I intended. I made a product that resembled somebody else's product, a woodworking project, and the person who originally created the video that my product was kind of inspired by in a way.
Not the same thing.
I wasn't. Right. I don't want to get too much in the details of here, but I wasn't trying to copy this guy's product. It just happened that it was very similar. Right. And what happened was I create my video, I start to get some views on it, and then people start to comment, hey, this looks like this guy's. Hey, that's mine. Hey, that's so-and-so's. Right. And then it started off, it went from just like calling out that my product looked a lot like his to people actually saying that I was intentionally trying to make money off of his product and trying to tap into his market.
Accusing you of stealing.
Somebody literally called me a thief.
Yeah, right.
And somebody called me sleazy and sketchy. And here I'm sitting, looking at my phone like I'm just a dude in my garage trying to make a couple extra bucks to support my family. Right. And I have a laser engraver and some wood and some saws, and I'm just like having fun and posting it on social media. Right. And and then people start saying all these harsh things about me. This is a conflict that I chose not to engage in. I think there are conflicts that we can do that with. Yeah. I think it's possible a conflict to happen and we just decide, you know what, this is not worth my energy. Right. It's not worth my breath because I'm not going to change anybody's mind. I'm not going to sway their opinion about me, and I'm just going to have to live with it. And I think sometimes that's okay. Like for my circumstance, I'm perfectly comfortable with not engaging with it. I was tempted many times because I felt like I had to defend myself. Yeah.
As you do. Yeah,
I really felt, I lost sleep over this actually a couple nights where I just really wanted to come up with the best reply possible to just be looked at and accepted. Right. And like, I didn't want to have people disliking me for something that they're perceiving that I did that I didn't actually mean to do. Yeah. But I decided not to ultimately. And I feel good about that.
Yeah. I have a hard time, especially on social media. I was even just talking like with a student about this the other day. I would consider myself pretty easygoing. For whatever reason, my fight or flight response is just like 100% towards fight. And sometimes I don't even think about what I'm doing. And so when I see somebody say something, especially on social media, I'm a lot better at it now, in large part because of my wife. But there was a season of my life where I just wouldn't check myself at all. Like I would see something I disagreed with and just like right back at them, like, as quickly as I could. And that got me into trouble more than a few times, just in pointless arguments online, and oftentimes with people that I knew, or at least kind of knew in real life. It wasn't usually with strangers. It was with people that were at least kind of connected to me. And so then it's really awkward when you have a fight with someone on social media and then you run into them in person and you're like, we never really resolved that. We just at some point stopped commenting, and then here we are. I don't think it has ever ended positively, the social media arguments for me. And so then the question becomes, how do I discern between conflicts that I can just kind of let go, like this I don't even need to say anything, and conflicts that I just can't let go, right? Like I even think of, there was an example where there was a parent who reached out to me through the church that disagreed with something that I had said in youth group, and it could have elevated really far to the point of being a large conflict, in part because it was a he said, she said situation. And then when we actually got into the room, talked to each other, tried to listen to each other and not just base our thoughts and our opinions off of what we had heard, then we were able to resolve the conflict. But I think one of the hardest things, at least for me, when it comes to resolving conflict, and you kind of talked about this with your story too, we just feel the need to defend ourselves. And so when I'm listening to the person that I'm having a conflict with, so often I'm not really listening to what they have to say. I'm just formulating my response, my refutation or my arguments to what they're going to say while they're talking. And then
you're listening to argue,
yes,
rather than listening to understand.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. And so then we just end up talking past each other, right? I'm listening to argue, not listening to understand. And then, if we're both doing that, we're just going to keep arguing forever.
Yeah, and you're not going to change their mind. They're not going to change yours.
Right.
And it's not going to become resolved.
Right. So one of the things that I have tried to implement for myself is actually from this book, Why Don't We Listen Better, by James Peterson. I had to read it for a class once, and he puts it in these really simple terms, like what does it mean to be the talker and what does it mean to be the listener? So simple that he even has little cards. Like if you and I had a conflict, we could take one of these cards and like face the talker side at me and the listener side at you, and it's okay, right now I'm the talker. I'm the one who's most bothered by this aspect.
The talking stick idea.
Yes,
Here, take
exactly.
The talking stick,
yes,
Tyler.
The talking stick. Now I get to talk, Dylan. You have to hear all the stuff I'm upset about, and then when I'm
listening and I hear you.
Right, exactly. And so some of the things that he says, like the goal of the talker. Yeah, I don't need that.
Give me that.
The goal of the talker should be to share their thoughts and their feelings without accusing, attacking, labeling, or judging. So I'm expressing to you what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, but not in a way that's particularly, harmful towards you or aimed towards you. Even if you're the person I'm having a conflict with, it's less about here's all the ways I'm upset with you, Dylan, and just here's why the situation has made me feel upset. And then as the listener, you are there to understand and to clarify without agreeing or disagreeing, advising or defending. And so it's kind of like, in the moment, you might agree or disagree with what I'm saying. You might want to give me some advice or defend yourself. We talked about that already. But when you're the listener, your job is not to be thinking about how can I defend myself or give them advice or point out the things that they're saying that are wrong. It's simply to understand that other person's point of view, right, and then to clarify your understanding. And one of the things that I like to do is just repeat back to that person what I heard them say. Like if I'm hearing you right, Dylan, this is why you're upset, and this is what I could do to help fix the problem. Not in a way that's, shady, condescending. Yeah, exactly. Not like, oh, Dylan, I hear that you're really mad because, I took the last ice, but you drank 7 ices, but I shouldn't even get one. It's like I'm not really responding with what I think I'm hearing you say. I'm just responding to kind of like dig at you, but just listening to understand, not to argue, and then responding back and saying, here's what I'm hearing you say. And then when I'm done with that, asking the question, am I correct? Because then if I am, then we can start to move towards resolution. If I'm not, then I can correct my understanding.
Yeah. That's good.
But if I'm never actually looking to have a proper understanding of why you're upset and vice versa, we're never getting to resolution, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to argue forever.
One thing that I use as a counselor within like family sessions or couple sessions, I will lay down the ground rules, and
smart.
There is the I have the power as a counselor to kind of mitigate the conversation, but I try to help people develop these skills so that they can have these conversations without me there eventually.
Fair.
But one of the very simplest and most cliche things is I statements or I feel statements.
Yep.
I feel this because this. I feel angry, Tyler, because you drank all the ices.
Yeah.
And it goes from
by the way.
That way of forming the sentence is so much more responsible than saying, Tyler, you drank all the ices.
Yeah.
And I hate you, and you're the worst
Right.
because you drank all these ices. You didn't consider me.
Yeah.
See how like that? I think people actually do speak like that, and I think I've spoken like that before in real time.
Same.
And so I don't know, forming it, I feel a little angry because you drank all the ice.
Yeah.
And I wish I had one.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of gives you an ability to also see, my actions affected Dillon in a way that was harmful to him.
I might not have even been
it's a
thinking
pretty light
about it.
subject.
Yeah, the ISIS. But then you get into something that's really big, decisions that actually have consequences, or even just, situations that have been allowed to like boil past a point that's appropriate for the situation. I remember sitting in a restaurant once with some of our friends, and we were having a conversation about I guess you could call it a political topic and maybe more of a cultural topic. And all of us were coming from roughly the same place, but we just had different ideas on how the problem should be solved. And so as we were having this conversation, for whatever reason, I took all of their ideas that went against my idea as you're dumb or you don't really care or we know better than you. And so I hit this like volcano exploding point where I'm just lashing out at them verbally. And then we get done and we're all sitting there. And it was super embarrassing because I'm like, the rest of them are fine and I'm just fuming over here. And I remember I'm quiet and they all just kind of went on with their conversation and I'm just quiet because I'm angry and I'm eating my food. And I thought I could be enjoying my time with my friends in this restaurant. Instead, I'm sitting here mad about something that they're clearly not that mad about because they moved on 10 minutes ago. And so I had to humble myself to say, okay, so even if none of us is like right or wrong in terms of the thing we were having a discussion about, I'm wrong in the way that I responded. And so I had to humble myself and just ask for forgiveness. And then they gave it, and then we moved on. Honestly, I bet some of them don't even remember that day, that situation. Like it just wasn't that big of a deal to them. And so being able to humble yourself, recognizing that having peace with the people around you is more important than winning the argument or getting your way every time, I think is crucial to being able to live at peace with people. I don't want to be in conflict all the time. I don't enjoy conflict, especially not with people I care about.
Honestly, exhausting to be in constant conflict because you have to, I don't know, it robs energy you could be spending actually enjoying the meal.
Right. And my time with those people who I care about.
Right, yes.
Yeah. So.
And when we let pride take the place in these situations where we really focus on, I have to get my way, our relationships are not allowed to grow. And when we are able to resolve conflict in a healthy way, we see that our relationships can grow stronger.
True. That's true.
Whether that be in friendships like you and me, Tyler, or of the relationship that I have with my wife or other, my family, whatever relationship you have, whether it be teachers, students, whatever, learning the skills to be able to resolve a conflict, being humble, admitting that you're wrong sometimes.
Yeah. Asking
for forgiveness. What are some other key elements here?
Well, I think, one of the things that you bring up is one of the elements is understanding that if people know you as somebody who can't resolve conflict, they never will want a deep relationship with you, because they'll know that eventually they're going to have some kind of conflict and it can't.
That's a
So
really
all
good
your
point, yeah.
relationships have to stay surface level, because as you get closer to someone, we're all broken people. We all, need healing, and we need to work through our stuff. We're all on different journeys. And so eventually you get close to somebody, you're going to have some kind of conflict with them. And if people know that you can't handle conflict well, they'll just keep you at arm's length so that you can't ever get in a situation that's real enough to have conflict. And so remembering it's okay to have conflict. You and I can have a conflict, whether it's a disagreement or just something I said that hurt you or vice versa. It's okay for us to have conflict as long as we are willing to be humble, are willing to ask and give forgiveness, are committed to listening, to understand, and not to argue. And then also just being willing to fight the problem and not the person. A lot of times
That's good,
you
yeah.
and I
Yeah,
might
that's
have
good.
a conflict about something, and it could be really deep rooted. Maybe I did something or said something. We're at one of your kids' birthday parties or something, and I said something to one of your family members about you that was really hurtful, or maybe it was a secret. I wasn't supposed to tell
Yeah,
anybody.
what the heck, dude?
Yeah, and I told one of your family members or one of your family friends a secret that I was the only one who's supposed to know. That whole time, you would rightfully be upset at me, and I would need to ask for forgiveness, and you'd be able to give it. But also, if the problem the problem of whatever it is that you felt the need to hide, and my inability to keep your confidence, those are things that you and I could work on together. If it turned into, Dillon, you are too timid, and you need to stop hiding things, and you need to stand up for yourself, and I'm looking down on you because you won't, and you're like, well, Tyler, you can't keep a secret.
See, even though this is totally hypothetical, you said those things, and I almost instantly got like, whoa, hold on
Yeah,
here.
right, exactly.
The way that we frame our conversation, how we handle the issue is huge.
Yep. So if we're fighting the problem, there's this thing in your life that maybe you're insecure about that should be worked through instead of hidden, and I need to be reminded how important it is to have somebody's trust and be able to keep things confidential. Those are problems we can work at, as opposed to me attacking your personality and then you attacking my personality right back.
Right, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to hurt each other, and then you're going to leave the conversation maybe never ever resolve.
Right.
Until you feel a need in order to, because I think harboring resentment towards people can also be very corrosive to us.
Oh,
Not
absolutely.
forgiving people.
You get bitter.
That's a weight on us that turns us,
Absolutely.
turns us bitter towards those people. And I certainly can attest to that.
Yeah.
Holding resentment towards people that have hurt me.
And I think too, being willing to listen for understanding can actually take you a lot farther in conflict resolution than you might even think. There are times when we interact with people, and we both interact with these kinds of people that are kind of like a bull in a china shop, maybe, when it comes to conflict resolution. They're constantly running at you, charging at you. It feels like they're attacking you. If you're willing to listen long enough to allow their anger to kind of dissipate, you'll find that even people that seem really difficult to deal with, you can get to a point where they're willing to practice some of these conflict resolution techniques. You might have to be, in that moment, the bigger person, the one who is able to set your own feelings aside and say, I am just going to listen without trying to argue long enough for the angry energy that's kind of in the air here, or that I feel, the anger I feel coming from that person. I'm going to allow it to dissipate, and then I'm going to engage. And sometimes putting your own feelings aside, you have to be able to do that.
Well, I think that's a really good point too, is when a conflict arises, our emotions are going to be really heightened.
Yep.
And
that's me to a T right there.
When we are really heated, that might not be the best time to solve the conflict.
Also true.
We might need to put a pin in it and say, you know what, we're both too heated right now. Our emotions are getting the best of us. Let's take a break. Let's come back and let's talk about this when we're more even-headed.
My wife and I do that, and that's something I even talk to couples.
I think that's a really healthy thing to do.
Yeah, as they go towards marriage, I say, have a pause button, but have an agreement on the terms of the pause button. Because what you don't want is to say, like, we're going to put a pin in this and then never come back to it. And it kind of just sits under the surface and you never really resolve it. So if you're going to say pause on a conflict or an argument, decide for how long, before you even leave, decide for how long. We're going to talk about this in 30 minutes. We're going to talk about it tonight, or we're going to talk about it next Wednesday. I don't care, but decide when it's going to be talked about again so that it can't just sit underneath. And then when you are taking time to let it rest and not talk about it, pray for the other person. Because really, no matter how mad I am at you, if you and I, Dillon, are arguing and we hit the pause button for even 10 minutes and I go away and I do something else and I pray, not even that the conflict would be resolved, although I pray for that too, but I pray specifically for you, then it's really hard when you get back into it, when you hit unpause, it's really hard to still be mad at each other. Or at least maybe your anger can go down a little bit because, man, advice. I just talked to God about you, and then I'm going to come back and be angry with you. That just it doesn't work. It's silly. So even for big conflicts, I've found that the pause button can be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think setting ground rules when it comes to conflict is really important. Yeah. I mean, think about a sports game. Any sport you can think of has a sports ball. Go sports.
Yeah,
there are rules, and
True.
if you do not follow the rules, well, you get a flag, you get a penalty, whatever.
Right. Consequences.
There's consequences. So, and there's a reason for that. I mean, I think having organized structure to how we deal with a certain conflict is really important. And I think the sports metaphor is like the teams are conflicting because one wants to win, the other wants to win.
That's true.
And so it's an organized competition, organized conflict.
It's organized conflict, and it only works because both teams agree to the rules.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's fair.
And it goes well because of that. But as soon as people start playing like street ball,
yeah.
elbows get thrown, noses get broken.
Then you get a different kind of conflict that usually doesn't end well.
Right. Rules create boundaries.
Yep.
Boundaries
That's
keep good things in, keep the bad stuff out, and it helps you to mitigate any sort of conflict that can arise in a healthy way. But my question, and I have thoughts on this, is it possible to have a conflict that is unresolvable and still be in a good relationship with somebody? I think yes.
Yeah. I think yes, as long as you're okay with saying we agree to disagree.
Right.
But maybe, I don't know what your
agree
thoughts
to
are.
disagree. That's what I was going to say. I think that there's certain times when in every relationship where you both do not see this same perspective. You don't see eye to eye on something. Like, for example, I love superhero movies. Marvel is my go-to. Tyler, you do not.
No, I mean, I don't hate them, but I just don't. They're not my go-to.
Again, this is a light issue, but a conversation can come up and people just don't see eye to eye. They think, you have to agree with me. I have to agree with you all the time.
Yeah.
Our culture, there's this kind of this toxic thing happening right now that says if we disagree with each other, that means we cannot get along with each other.
Yeah. What does the Bible say about it? You brought up something really, really powerful earlier from Romans that I want to hear.
Romans 12, the Apostle Paul, he says, this is actually really interesting because he's saying something that's almost paradoxical in a way. He says, bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think you know it all. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone.
Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone.
With everyone.
Right.
And he says, bless those who persecute you, those who come against you, those who want to argue with you. Bless them.
If you find yourself thinking, I don't know, I've never seen healthy conflict resolution modeled. I don't know what it looks like to have conflict that actually helps instead of hurts, or to listen for understanding instead of argument. One of the ways that you can grow in that area is to be coached, to talk to somebody who maybe has a little more life experience, has had a few more conflicts than you, and has some opportunity to help guide you in understanding your own conflict resolution style, and also just helping you to maybe be held accountable with the way that you do approach conflict with other people, because we all need that sometimes. So we encourage you, if you're looking to grow in this area, grab a book, get one for another person, and just go and be coached. You can find more info and buy books at journeycoaching.org.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time and make sure you like and subscribe. Visit us at journeycoaching.org and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Start your own journey at journeycoaching.org.
Your life, your journey starts now.